Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Glitter Glam Rock podcast. I'm Marty-less again today. Marty's sick, so we're wishing him all the best. Today, we're going to talk about the top 10 glam rock album covers and the top 10 sweet songs. But before that, I remembered a little story from our past, and it was at school we used to have square dancing, which was really weird because we were a beach school and it was beach and football, and all of a sudden we were doing square dancing. And there was this guy, really nice guy, Mr. Splain. He used to do the square dancing, and of course Marty and I were fascinated with this because he had a record player and he had a lot of records, and we asked our teacher if we could help Mr. Splain set up every Thursday or whatever day it was, and our teacher was like, yeah, sure, he just wanted to get rid of us. So we'd go there and help Mr. Splain, and we were really good at square dancing. We were right into it because it was music and it was dancing, and even though it wasn't exactly what we wanted, it was better than doing math. Um, so one day we're doing square dancing, and Marty brings along a copy of Gary Glitter's Do You Want to Touch Me? And asks Mr. Splain if we can all dance to that. And Mr. Splain didn't really like the idea, but after a lot of convincing, he decided to do it. And so he puts the record on, and Marty and I are watching, and Mr. Splain tells, you've got about like 4 or 5 different squares all dancing. And he puts on Do You Want to Touch Me? And Mr. Splain tells him to do this some certain dance, and all the kids are bumping into each other and don't know what's going on. And we started laughing, and we grabbed the microphone, which was sitting on the table, and started singing, Do you want to touch? Yeah, do you want to touch? Yeah, at the top of the voice. And of course, this brought in the principal who, came in arms folded looking around, and rest in peace, Mr. Splain. Oh, he might still be alive, for all I know. If he is, I'm sorry, Mr. Splain. Oh, but what also happened too is the principal came in, and we were having like a parent-teacher night, and he wanted to he wanted a square up there dancing so the mums and dads could see. And Marty and I were the best square dancers because we were right into it. This was our chance to show off, hold hands with girls, and we had a lot of fun with it. And Mr. Splain directed the principal towards us, but he wouldn't have any of it, and he just picked out all the good-looking kids from each square. The kids that looked like they'd be in a children's Bible. And they were the ones that got up there on the parent-teacher night. And after that, me and Marty thought, you know what? Fuck this square dancing shit. You're listening to the Glitter Glam Rock podcast. Okay, so album covers as a kid were a huge thing, as we all know. Times when you couldn't afford to buy a record. Marty and I would go down to the record store and we'd just look at album covers. And here's another little story. I'll make this one quick. There was a new kid who came to school. His name was David. The poor guy had like a wonky eye, so he was like an outcast, a misfit. And of course, Marty and I took him in, and he was a really, really nice guy. And he took us to his place one day, and his sister, who was a couple of years older than us, had this fantastic glam rock record collection. And we would sneak into her room and just go through these records that we never had, and we'd pick up the albums and just look at them and wonder what it was like. I remember that she had a lot of Bowie. She was right into Bowie, and one day she walks in while we're doing it, and we all shat ourselves, oh my God, she's caught us looking at these records. But she was really nice, and she sat down and she went through every album. She was playing us records. She was telling us stories. She had all the Gary Glitter records as well. She was telling us the stories, or what she thought at the time were the stories behind the songs. And that I think that was the first time I ever saw the cover of Aladdin Sane. But I'll talk about that a little bit later. So on those rare occasions where you could actually, where you had money for an album, but you didn't know what album to get, a record cover could really persuade you. And, of course, like I'm sure all of you out there, you've bought some records based on the cover, and the record's been a dud, and you've bought some records that are fantastic that don't have such a great cover. I remember one cover. I think it's an Alice Cooper cover. I think it was Billion Dollar Babies, and that used to fascinate me. That cover just had some kind of, I don't know what it was, but it just, and the thing is, I never bought it. I used to look at it all the time. I wasn't a big Alice Cooper fan, but covers could just really imprint themselves upon your imagination. So here we go, the top 10 album covers. You're listening to the Glitter Glam Rock podcast. Yeah. So these are my top 10 glam rock album covers, but not necessarily my top 10 glam rock albums. Okay, and the rule is I could only pick one album per artist, because there's a couple of artists I could pick two or three album covers from, and I'd love to hear what yours are. So please post your top 10 on our YouTube channel, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All right, so number 10 for me was the self-titled ABBA album. Now, for all you girls out there, and I know there's a lot of glitter girls out there, you girls had a lot to look at. You had a lot to look at. You had Bowie wearing his G-string, and you had Gary and all those guys wearing their tight pants. But for us guys, we didn't have much to look at. We had we had Susie, of course, but the first time I saw ABBA, I just fell totally head over heels in love with Anna. And that album cover just really caught me, because they're in the back of a limousine, they're drinking champagne. Anna looks beautiful, and it had some good songs on it too. Of course, I'd heard Mamma Mia before. It's got that on it, and it's got I Do, I Do, I Do, which I used to lie in bed and fantasize that they were singing to me about. um, it's also got a song I think that should have been a single called So Long on there. And it's got a song called Rock Me that Bjorn sings, and he kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, but he sounds a lot like Noddy Holder in that song, so that's my number 10. My number 9 is by an Aussie band called Hush, and the album's called Aloud and Alive, and I love that cover because the whole thing is glitter. It's got a silver glitter background. The name Hush is written in glitter, and it was a real eye catcher. You couldn't walk past a record store without seeing it. It was always in the record store owners used to put it in the window, especially to catch people's eyes. And that had a song on it called Get the Feeling, which was on the K-Tel album Fantastic, which Marty and I have spoken about, which is how we discovered glam rock. And it's a pretty good album, actually. I mean, Get the Feeling's the best song on it, but the cover is just fantastic. And I remember I posted it up on a glam rock site on Facebook a couple of days ago, and someone said, commented and said, Hush was Sharpie glam. And Sharpies in Australia were probably like the first punks. So, back in the 60s and 70s. So, yeah, I guess you could say they were punk glam, but you should look that one up. Have a look, and just to have a look at the cover. The cover's fantastic. So that's my number 9. My number 8 is Suzi Quatro's debut album, Suzi Quatro, which in Australia was actually called Can the Can. And that album cover was like, it was very different from everyone else's. Everyone had all these, shiny glam rock covers. This was black and white. And I think it was very influential in the punk movement. Like, it really reminds me of the Ramones' first album. If you look at the Ramones' first album, it's black and white, and it looks a lot like that, I think. And what got me about that was it was you had this young Susie standing there, and in the background they just looked like a bunch of thugs. You have Len Tucky drinking beer, and these guys just hanging around. It's like you wouldn't want to walk down a dark alleyway and see these guys. And then it's got even though Susie looks tough, a tough little Susie there, she still looks innocent compared to these guys. And of course, the album's got like one of the best opening album tracks of all time in 48 Crash. And it's got another one of my favorites in there. Well, it's got Can the Can, but it's got another one of my favorites in there, Glycerine Queen. So I was always fascinated by that album. And I remember seeing that album a lot in everyone's record collection. Everyone seemed to have that album. So yeah, that's my number 8. My number 7 is Slade, Slayed, with a question mark, so it's really Slade, by Slade, of course. That sort of had the same feel as the Suzi Quatro album. These guys on the cover look like a bunch of thugs. It could have easily been a AC/DC cover, and I remember buying that record, and that's also a record that a lot of people had as well, and that didn't disappoint. It had Mama We're All Crazy Now on it. It had Goodbye to Jane. Um, it had it had another song on it that I really loved, Look at Last Night, which was really good. I think to me that's probably their best album cover, and it's definitely one of their best albums. And but like I said before, I just couldn't get over how as a kid how thuggy they looked. You'd see they didn't look like the way they did when you saw them on TV. On TV, they're all glitter and glammed up and jumping around and smiling. On this, they look like they just got out of jail. My number 6 is by a band a lot of people don't consider to be glam rock, but I do. I think it's probably America's only glam rock band at the time, and that's Kiss. And the album is Kiss Alive 1, which had everything on it for like, an 11-year-old, 12-year-old kid. Had these demonic guys, had taken the makeup one step further, had fire on the cover. It was just, I remember as soon as I saw it, I thought, what the hell is this about? I have to have this. And listening to it, there's explosions and sirens, and it just really fired up your imagination. You're thinking, what the hell's going on here? And crowd noises, like the crowd was cheering all the way through every song, which was a bit weird, and which, I found out later that the crowd noise was lifted from a Super Bowl and that it wasn't really a live album. And it was what you have to remember is Kiss were right into glam rock. They loved the Sweet, they loved Slade, they loved Suzi Quatro, and most of all, though, they loved Alice Cooper. And their songs sound like a mixture of all of that stuff. So that was, and glam rock was sort of dying in Australia. This was like 1975. You weren't hearing that much glam rock anymore. You weren't seeing it that much on TV. And then Kiss just exploded on TV and on radio with Rock and Roll All Night. So that was the logical next step for me. And I still do think it's a great album. I play it, every now and then I'll play a few select songs. But the cover of that, and it was a gatefold as well. It was a double album. I just thought it really deserved a spot in the top 10. You're listening to the Glitter Glam Rock podcast. Okay, number five. All right, so my number five is Alvin Stardust, The Untouchable. In Australia, it was called Cougar Chew. Australia had this weird thing of changing album titles and calling it by whatever the most popular single was. But I really like that album cover. There seemed to be like two different types of glam rockers. You had like image wise anyway. You had the colourful Gary, Bowie, Sweet, those guys, and then you had the ones that just wore black, like Alvin Stardust and Susie and Alice Cooper, and actually the Sweet went to black leather towards the end. But yeah, that cover just got me. He's dressed in black. He's standing there. It looks like a staged live concert with all these girls' hands coming up. And I told the story before where Marty noticed that one of the girls was wearing wedding rings and was saying, "Oh, even married women are after this guy." And it had a lot of really good songs on it, not just the two singles, which were Cougar Chew and Jealous Mind. And it seemed to be darker themes. Like if you look at Cougar Chew was like a sex song, lay down and groove on the mat. But Jealous Mind was about jealousy and obsession and that sort of. I remember even as a kid thinking this is different. This isn't like this isn't about a starman or love or whatever. This is these are sort of like darker themes which I didn't know that much about. But that was one of the covers that got me when I was young, and I still think that's one of the best glam rock covers today. So my number four is the Sweet Singles album, which was an Australia and New Zealand only release, and I like that cover because it's just so 70s looking. I mean, the layout's really 70s, the font is really 70s, and the album itself has sentimental value. It's only got 4 A-sides on it. I think it was Hellraiser, Blockbuster, Ballroom Blitz, and Teenage Rampage, and the rest of the 7 songs are B-sides. So it was just, we wouldn't have been exposed to those B-sides if that album wasn't out. And I bought it just recently, and I know Marty's really jealous because he's trying to get it, but it's very hard to get. And it was actually released on CD with the original artwork and the original running order, but I've never seen it. I've only heard about it, and I would love to grab a copy. But yeah, that's definitely one of my favorites, and you should just Google it. Just Google it, just so you can have a look at the image. It's really cool. Okay, number three. Number three is a big one for me, actually. It's the Glitter Band's Hey album. I mean, talk about a glam rock cover. The Glitter Band is written in glitter, golden glitter, and the suits they're wearing are probably my favorite Glitter Band suits. I know Marty likes the suits around the Touch Me era, but I really like the ones they're wearing on the cover of Hey. And I remember what freaked me out when I was a kid was they're all wearing different colours, like John Springate's wearing blue, Jerry's silver, Harvey's wearing purple, and John Russell's wearing green, but both the drummers are wearing gold. And they've got capes as well. So, talk about glam. for a kid who was a Gary Glitter fan, and then just to have his band come out with a cover like that was just fantastic. And the album itself is drenched in that glitter sound, that Mike Leander glitter sound, the big drums, the hand claps, that mixture of the guitar and sax together. Of course, Angel Face and Just For You were just big, big songs. My only disappointment with that album is that there's a lot of covers, but over time I've grown to like those covers only because of the glitter sound. But yeah, that's my number three. That's a great glam album cover, and I guess it's one of those. If anyone ever asked you what glam rock looked like, you could just show them that album cover. My number two is David Bowie's Aladdin Sane. I mean, geez, what a cover that is. This guy looked like an alien. He looked like he was from outer space. That lightning bolt is so iconic. There's still, I see kids walking around with Bowie shirts with that cover on it. Um, and when I was talking before about how there were two different types of glam images, the colourful glam image and the black leather glam image, there was also two types of glam rock music. You had your bubblegum glam rock with the chanty choruses, and which I loved, absolutely loved, and still do today. But then you also had, the Bowie-ish glam rock, which was way more sophisticated, songwriting wise and arrangement wise. It was, and I didn't really understand it as a kid. It wasn't till later years that I really got to appreciate Bowie. And Aladdin Sane's not my favorite Bowie album. It's my favorite Bowie cover and one of my favorite all-time glam rock covers. My favorite Bowie album is Ziggy Stardust, which I don't really like the cover to that. But it also had a couple of songs. I wasn't a fan of the song Gene Genie. I liked the film clip. I wasn't a fan, but the title track Aladdin Sane, I loved the title track Aladdin Sane, and Drive In Saturday, which was a big single, and that was really glam rocky to me. And for me, it was a toss up between, for Bowie, it was a toss up cover wise. It was a toss up between that and Diamond Dogs. I think Marty would have picked Diamond Dogs. I know he's a big fan of that album, but Bowie sort of made it okay to be different. He actually made it cool to be different, and and that's one of the things besides the music. But that's one of the things I really love about Bowie. Okay, number one, numero uno, has to be Gary Glitter's debut album, what Marty and I call the Star album. Like that, to me, that encapsulates the whole movement. You've got this big star on there. The whole thing's in glitter. I never knew at the time, as a kid, I never knew there was such thing as red and green glitter. And we used to buy our glitter at the newsagents down the road, and we bolted straight down and bought little vials of red and green glitter, and it was just such an eye catcher. That was another one that record stores used to put in the window just to catch your eye. And of course, it had that gatefold. There was another version that came out. I don't know if it came out in Australia, and it didn't have the star on the cover. It had the picture that was in the gatefold on the cover, which was really weird. And it wasn't a gatefold at all. So of course I bought that, even though that it was, the song list was no different, but just to have an alternative copy. But yeah, I don't know. You just can't beat that star cover. And Marty puts it on everything, every DVD he makes, or every disc he makes that's got to do with glitter. That's that's on the cover. It's just so iconic. It's a fantastic album cover, and The songs inside were great too. You had Rock and Roll Parts 1 and 2. You had I Did Know I Love You Till I Saw You Rock and Roll, which was one of my favourite songs. And of course, the production. The production was a real standout, especially compared to some of the other glam bands whose. Oh, they all really did have good production, but I don't know. There's just something about Mike Leander's production that was just better than everyone else's. So that's my top 10 glam rock album covers. I'll just read them out to you again quickly. It was ABBA, the self-titled ABBA album, Hush, Alive and Aloud, Susie Quattro's debut album, Slade with the Y, Kiss Alive 1. Number 5 is Alvin Stardust. Number 4 is the Sweet Singles album. Number 3 is Hey. Number 2 is Aladdin Sane. And number 1 is Gary Glitter's Star album. You're listening to the Glitter Glam Rock podcast. Okay, the sweet top 10 songs. I mean, how do you pick the top 10 sweet songs? I had a really hard time with this. I was chopping and changing all the time, including this and throwing away that. Anyway, I eventually settled on a top 10. But, as you know, today's top 10 might not be tomorrow's top 10. And I would really love to hear your top 10 sweet songs. And of course, not everyone's going to agree with my top 10 lists. And so you shouldn't. And you should let me know why not. Okay, so my number 10 is The 16s. What a great song. Fantastic song. It's probably the last really good Chin Chap songs that they wrote. The production is fantastic. I love the drum sound in it. It's so dramatic. It's like, I don't know, it's like a movie within itself. Of course, as I've spoken about before, the song was meant for Susie, and I can really imagine Susie singing it. But when the Sweet heard it, they wanted it for themselves and did a very good version of it. And surprisingly, it wasn't a really big hit for them. But I just think it's a very underrated Sweet song, and I've got it at my number 10. My number 9 is the B-side to Fox on the Run, a song called Misdemeanor, which all the members wrote. And it's just, I love the riff. That riff is fantastic. And those drum rolls at the beginning, Mick Tucker's drum rolls at the beginning. And the chorus, just the harmonies in the chorus are fantastic, And of course, it's Steve Priest takes the lead vocals. And I thought that could have been a single on its own, But the only critique I have of that song is that it just goes off into this jam that goes for too long, which I don't think they should have done. They should have come back with that great chorus, and if they would have fixed it up like they did with Fox on the Run, I think that might have been an A-side down the track. But yeah, that's it still is one of my favorite Sweet songs, and that's why I've got that at number 9. My number 8 is another B-side. It's a B-side to Hellraiser. It's called Burning. I was first exposed to that song on the Sweet Singles album, and I just love it. It's got sort of like that deep purple feel. There's a few weird things going on in there. It's really the other side of the Sweet. Like, you can divide the Sweet up into two bands, really. You've got that bubblegum band, and then you've got that hard rock band. And for me, when it comes to that hard rock band, Burning is one of their best songs. So I've got that at number 8. And at number 7, I've got Action, another song that they all wrote together. That was a single after Fox on the Run. It's it's some of the lyrics. If you listen to some of the lyrics, it's like they're pretty heavy. It's I think they're having a dig at Chin Chapman. They're I think it's a great song. It was a real change of image. I noticed in the film clip, there was a lot of black leather going on. All the makeup was gone, all the glitter was gone, and they were getting serious about it. And Brian Connolly actually thinks that Queen in Bohemian Rhapsody, the end, that rocky part in Bohemian Rhapsody right at the end, he actually accused Queen of ripping Action off for that. And if you listen to it, it does sound kind of similar. I really like that. I thought the production, I don't know, as songwriters, they were great. As producers, I don't think they were that good. The production on Fox on the Run and Action is a little bit muddy compared to, Wayman's production or Chin Chap's production. But that was a really great song for me. I thought Fox on the Run was the end of Sweet, and then they came out with Action, which was nowhere near as big a hit, but still just a fantastic and underrated Sweet song. My number six is Wigwam Bam. One of their early songs. I think that was really the beginning of the glam Suite for me. That guitar sound, fantastic guitar sound. Love that guitar sound. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's Steve Priest's first cameo. Um, and it was, their performance on Top of the Pops where Steve Priest's wearing, that Indian headdress and Brian's wearing the silver suit. And I think it was really the beginning of the glam era for Sweet. And it's such a catchy bubblegum song. It's still one of my favorite Sweet songs. And if ever I hear it on my Spotify mix, I'm always turning up the car audio and singing along. Um, it was, I don't know, to me, Wigwam Bam's very iconic, and the Top of the Pops film clip is just fantastic. One thing I'd like to mention about the Suite is they're arguably the biggest glam band because they had a couple of top 10 hits in America. And they were, influential, very influential with bands like Motley Crue and Kiss, and even, and their songs appear more on film soundtracks, than any other band. So they're not as underrated as people seem to think they are. Everyone around the world that's right into music knows who the Sweet are. The only other artist, I guess, like that was Bowie, where you had someone like T Rex. He only had one hit in the States. Gary Glitter only had one hit in the States, but the Sweet had quite a few. Like I know they had like two top 10 hits in America and a couple of hits that were like hovering around the bottom part of the top 40, so that they were quite popular. Anyway, my number five is an album track of Desolation Boulevard called Medusa, which was written by Andy Scott. And I like that song because it mixes the bubblegum suite with the heavy rock suite, and it's got those horror elements to it, and it's really well produced, and it's got like lots of sound effects and really good harmonies. And I would have loved if they would have done a full album with songs like Medusa on it. Okay, number four is Teenage Rampage, or what Mike Chapman called the Nuremberg Rally. That song just had everything in it. It had that "We Want Sweet" chant. It had that intro that dramatic, dynamic intro to it. Had the catchy chorus. It was really well produced. The lyrics were good too. But yeah, that chorus I just used to love. That it's probably one of my favorite choruses in a Sweet song, and definitely one of my favorite Sweet singles. That's why I've got it at number four. Number three is one of the big ones. It's Fox on the Run. And this is when they broke away from Chin Chapman. This is when the record company had asked them for a single, and they contacted Chin Chapman, and Chin Chapman were in the States at the time and said, "We don't have anything for you." So they contacted the record company back and said they don't have anything for us, and the record company said, "Well, what about this Fox on the Run song that you've got off their album, which was a different version, much different version?" They said, "Why don't you go glam it up and we'll release that as a single?" So they went in, they did it all hush hush and secret, and they came out with one of their best songs ever. And I was reading recently, one critic wrote at the time, this Fox on the Run is the last of the great glam rock singles. And when you look back, it probably is. It probably is. And it had everything in it. It had all the sweet stuff. It was bubblegum sweet, a little bit heavier. It had the Steve Priest cameo. And even though I don't think it was their highest charting song ever, it's probably their most popular song ever. I know it's their most covered. And I know, like, you speak to any young people now and you mention the Sweet, and if they've heard of the Sweet, they'll say Fox on the Run. They won't say, they won't mention anything else. Everyone seems to know Fox on the Run. I know Ace Frehley did a cover of it, but nothing beats the original. My number two is a little track called Hellraiser. For me, Hellraiser's got everything in it. It's got all the Sweet trademarks in it. It starts off with an explosion, a great Steve Priest cameo, fantastic harmonies in the chorus, and it's the best Sweet songs gave you like visions in your head, like actually sort of like told a story, and you could sort of like picture what was going on in the story, and Hellraiser was one of those for me. And it had that riff at the beginning that's been ripped off a million times by Motley Crue. Motley Crue had one of their biggest hits from ripping off that riff, and I just love it. I just love Hellraiser. I definitely think it's one of their best, and that's why it's my number two. Which brings us to my number one Sweet song of all time. Of course, I've spoken about this a million times, is Ballroom Blitz. What a song. What just an action-packed explosion of glam rock, that song. It has to be one of the best glam rock songs ever. And like I said before, you can listen to Mike Chapman's demo of that on YouTube. And of course, it doesn't have the drums at the beginning. The drums at the beginning were Phil Wayman's idea, which was ripped off. Those drums were ripped off from a drummer who used to put out drum singles called Sandy Nelson. Let There Be Drums. You can, if you listen to it, if you get to about 2 minutes, it's just got that drum beat in it, which was just so well produced. And I think that was probably their biggest hit. I know that Blockbuster, which I don't have in my top 10 because it's not one of my favourite Sweet songs. I like it, but Blockbuster was number one in England. But in terms of record sales, Ballroom Blitz was the one that sold the most because it made the top 10 in America, which was a lot of records. And to me, that epitomizes Sweet. If someone asked me, play me a Sweet song, What Was Sweet All About, that's the song I would play. I just love that song. And as I said, I think it's one of the best glam rock songs of all time. Okay, that's it from me this week. We might actually do a part two of this episode because I know Marty wants to share his top 10 glam rock albums and his top 10 sweet songs. You can listen to us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, heaps of places, lots of places. Also want to give a shout out to a couple of Facebook pages, the Glam Rock pages, Glam Rock and We're Proud, and Glam Rock, I think it's 71 to 76, and Gary Glitter's Jukebox, and the Glitter Band, and the Susie Quattro ones, and the Sweet ones. There's just so much glam on Facebook. You can go there, you see things that you haven't seen before, hear things you haven't heard before. And it's just a great time. And until next time, I'll see you later.